Good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing today? It's a little chilly outside, so I had to put a scarf on and try to warm up a little bit. But I wanted to read to you outside again because it's supposed to start raining today about 1, and I want to be outside when I can. Hope you guys are doing well and you've had a good weekend. And Monday was okay for you. It's Tuesday, last day in March. Can you believe it? Tomorrow's April Fool's Day. Hope you guys have tricks all planned for your parents. I'm going to start reading today chapter 18, and chapter 18 is really short. I didn't realize how short it was. It's only like 3 pages. So I'm going to read 18 and 19. I'll change the file that you guys have been looking at, the slideshow, to show that 18 and 19 are put together, okay? And, excuse me. And if you click on the link that I've sent everybody, you know, it says Serafina reading. If you click on that, you'll see that I've added 2 videos on there. I think I put them on chapter either 17 or 18, and they're both videos about the Biltmore, and I think you'll enjoy watching those, okay? So I hope you guys are doing well, and let's go ahead and get started, okay? I'm on page 215. Serafina whirled around, ready to fight. Braden, darling, what are you doing out here? It's time to come in now, Mrs. Vanderbilt called as she walked toward him. Serafina breathed a sigh of relief, then darted into the bushes, leaving Braden standing there alone. Who were you talking to just now? Mrs. Vanderbilt asked. No one, he said, moving toward his aunt to block her view. Just talking to myself. It's not safe for you out here, Mrs. Vanderbilt said. You need to come in now and go to bed. Serafina had never heard Mrs. Vanderbilt sound so tired and upset. The lady of the house clutched a long black coat around her waist to ward against the night's cold. It was clear that the disappearance of the children was taking a heavy toll on her. Hesitating, Braden glanced back into the bushes in Serafina's direction. Please come inside, Mrs. Vanderbilt said softly but firmly. All right, he said, finally. Serafina could tell that he didn't want to go, but he didn't want to upset his aunt any more than she already was. Mrs. Vanderbilt put her arm around him, and they began walking back toward the house. Lock your door, Serafina half coughed, half whispered to Braden, covering her mouth with her hand to garble her words. Did you hear something? Mrs. Vanderbilt said, stopping and looking out into the darkness. I think it was just a fox call out in the woods, Braden said casually, but Serafina could see him smile and was relieved he wasn't still cross with her for suspecting Mr. Thorne. Stay safe tonight, Serafina thought, as Braden and his aunt continued toward the house. Listen, your uncle and I have been talking, Mrs. Vanderbilt said. We're worried about you. I'm all right, Braden said. Your uncle and I need to stay here with the guests, but we've decided that it would be best if you went away from Biltmore for a little while. We tried it before, but we think it's more important than ever now. I don't want to go away, Braden said, and Serafina knew he was thinking of her. Just until things settle down and the detectives figure out what's going on, Mrs. Vanderbilt said, her voice getting progressively harder to hear as they went back into the house. It'll be safer. All right, he said. I understand. We've asked Mr. Thorne to take you with him in his carriage first thing tomorrow morning, she said. Won't that be nice? You like Mr. Thorne, don't you? You'll get to see his house in Asheville. As the door closed behind them, Serafina's heart filled with dread. Braden trusted Mr. Thorne and would have no choice but to agree with his aunt and uncle's wishes. The man in the black cloak would finally get what he wanted. Dun, dun, dun. Starting with chapter 18 now. I need a plan, Serafina thought as she went down the stairs into the basement, and it has to be tonight. As she ate a late-night dinner with her pa in the workshop, she wanted to tell him everything and begged for his help to save Braden. But there were no bodies, no weapons, no evidence of any kind to support what her pa would call her imaginings about the Vanderbilts' most trusted guest. Even her best friend didn't believe her. Her pa never would. But more than that, her pa looked so worn out. His hands were blackened and raw with the day's work on the Edison machine. He was under fierce pressure to get the lights back on, and rightly so. The darkness made the whole house the demon's domain. But then she stopped in mid-thought and realized something. The darkness made it her domain as well. "Are you all right?" her father asked as he scraped up the last of his potatoes with his spoon. "You haven't eaten anything." She pulled herself out of her thoughts, looked at her pa and nodded. "I'm all right." "Listen, Sarah," her pa said. "I want you to hunker down tonight. Keep to yourself, you hear?" "I hear, Pa," she said obediently, but of course she wouldn't. She couldn't. When they went to bed and her pa began to snore, she slipped out of the workshop and climbed the stairs that led outside to the estate grounds. Her mind was a whirl with thoughts and images and fears. She knew her pa wanted her to stay close to him, but the first time in her life, she didn't feel safe in the basement. Staying in the basement tonight was death. It was doom. It would lead to a loneliness she could not bear. Over the last few days, I gotta throw this ball for my dog. After the last few days, she had felt increasingly constrained there, and she didn't want to be inside anymore. She wanted the freedom of open space and true darkness. As she walked outside, it was a beautiful moonlit night with the light snow gently falling on the grass and trees. You guys, look at my crazy dog. Give the ball for me. Put it in my hand. See it in my hand? Now it's gonna go. I don't know if you can see him down there or not. Here he comes. We were washing the deck. All right. Sorry. She felt increasingly constrained there. She didn't want to be inside anymore. She wanted the freedom of open space and true darkness. As she walked outside, it was a beautiful moonlit night with the light snow gently falling on the grass and trees. She tried to think it all through. She knew what she had to do. She just didn't know how to do it. What stratagem could she devise to defeat the man in the black cloak? If he were a rat, how would she catch him? She walked to the edge of the forest and paused at the point her pa had told her that she should never go beyond. Okay. Sorry. I can't pause it, you guys, or we'll get all messed up. Hit the ball. But she kept going. She pushed through the thick bush and walked into the trees. She delved into the forest using the moonlight and the starlight to illuminate her way. I'm kind of doing this for fun, you guys, but if it's annoying, you got to let me know, and then I won't let my dog play with us anymore. Despite all that had happened, she was still drawn here. This was where she wanted to be. A glint of light caught her eye. She looked up and saw a falling star, then another. A shower of falling stars streaked across the sky, filling the crystalline black heavens with blazing light. And then the shower was gone, leaving nothing but the stillness of the glistening stars and the glowing planets in the infinite space above her. She heard tiny footsteps behind her, a small country mouse out foraging and now making his way back home to his family, warm beneath a hollowed log. The forest was alive at night, filled with motion, sound, creatures, and light. She felt comfortable here, connected. She walked a little further, studying the lichen-covered rocks, the trees with their outstretched limbs, and the little rills of glistening water that ran beneath the ferns. Was this the forest her mother had come from? Was this where she belonged? She thought about why she could see that Mr. Thorne was the man in black cloak, but no one else could. Not even Braden. Why could she believe it, but they could not? Because they were normal, mortal human beings, and she was not. She was closer to the man in the black cloak than she wished to admit, closer to being a demon. She knew she couldn't fight the man in the black cloak directly. He was far too strong. In their first encounters, she had barely escaped him with her life. A shiver ran down her spine just thinking about it. But she couldn't just keep running away and hiding from him either. Somehow she had to stop him. But he possessed an otherworldly power. If her theory about him was correct, then he had within him all the strength and capability of every person he'd ever absorbed into his cloak. And if she gave him another chance, he would surely absorb her as well. No, she couldn't fight the man in the black cloak head on. Not alone. She looked around her, and a dark idea formed in her mind. She asked herself the question again. If he were a rat, how would she catch him? Suddenly, she knew the answer. She'd bait him. Fear rose up in her like bile from a half-digested meal. She wanted to turn away from the idea, to avoid it, but her mind kept going back to it as the only solution. She thought of her pa's words once more. Never go into the deep parts of the forest, for there are many dangers there, both dark and bright. You're right, Pa, she said. There are. And I'm one of them. Standing in the woods, she came to a conclusion about herself, something that she'd known deep down for a long time, but that she had never wanted to come to grips with. She was not like her Pa. She was not like Braden. She was not human, at least not entirely. The thought of it brought a lump to her throat. She felt a terrible loneliness. She didn't know what it meant. She wasn't even sure she wanted to know what it meant, but she knew it was true. She was not like the people she loved. She'd been born in the forest, a forest as black as the black cloak and as haunted as the graveyard. She was one of them, a creature of the night. And actually, you guys, I am going to end right there. I'm on page 222, and I will continue in another video, probably in just a few minutes. But I'm going to end this one here because it's getting a little bit too long, okay? I will talk to you guys in just a little bit. Okay, bye.